and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Rasslin Report. And here's your host, Rated R for Rasslin and Jonesy Chats Wrestling.
Welcome back to the Rasslin Report. We are live in living color once again, and I'm joined by a special guest. It is Steve from SCW, one of the best wrestling YouTubers out there. Has been around for a long time, has a great channel, one of the most consistent channels I've seen in the YouTube wrestling space. And that's saying, a lot because there's a lot of channels out there, and Steve has been consistent for years. One of the main guys who's been on my channel for a ton of times, along with Jonesy and Barry from NWC. Steve, how you doing today?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on first and foremost. It's been a long time coming since we've done a collab, and I'm thankful that you reached out and to have me here. Obviously, big shoes to fill. Jones are usually in this spot, and I'm literally talking big shoes. Hopefully, this won't go bowling shoe ugly from my end, but I've got to say, man, I'm feeling pretty oosy. I don't know about you. I'm feeling top oos today. How about yourself?
I'm not full Uzi right now, but maybe I'll get there by the end of today's stream. But I want to thank you again, Steve, for helping me out here because last week, due to scheduling issues, we weren't able to have an episode of the Rasslin Report, and this week Jonesy was unavailable. So Steve stepping in, coming in clutch, and helping me out here and joining me. We have done so much stuff on both Steve's channel and my channel together. Classic retro reviews, which I hope to bring back in the near future, and we can have a lot of fun with that. That was a lot of fun that we used to do that, and other stuff as well, prediction shows, review shows, all that stuff, and just the classic ask SCW streams that he does that are awesome and great. Gets great engagement and great questions from everybody that he has on the stream. But Steve, I want to start it off by asking you right now, what are your thoughts on the current landscape of professional wrestling?
Overall, I'm really enjoying it. I feel this is probably the most excited I've been in for quite a while. WWE seems to be hitting a lot of the plus points at the moment. I'm really enjoying the Bloodline storyline. Obviously, Bray Wyatt's come back, which has got a lot of buzz. It gets a lot of people talking. I would say early off the bat, I don't want to give too much away, depending on the topics that we get, but I do feel that the Bray doesn't have the same steam as when he returned, but certainly it's something I'm invested in. When you go to the AEW side, obviously we're approaching full gear. MJF is on another level right now. Obviously, there's the brawl out stuff that's still going on in conversation, but of course with Kenny and the Bucks, looks like that first teaser of a return could be coming. CM Punk is a new story on its own. There's a lot to talk about in the wrestling landscape right now, and obviously Impact are doing great shows underneath the surface, still under the radar to many people, I would say at this point. So yeah, for me, all in all, I'm quite invested right now, and just to when we spare time as well, I'm doing a bit of WCW 2000 just to balance things out a little bit.
A little palate cleanser right there, WCW 2000. Yeah, you love to hear it. But I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to Bray Wyatt, we're going to touch on him a little bit later, and the Uncle Howdy stuff. It did lose a little bit of steam from the return, and it's a slow burn, right? So
Yeah.
Sometimes we complain about things being too crash course and quick nowadays. It's like no attention span type of thing, storylines, but this one's a little bit of a slower burn, and it's taking its time to develop. Now, when you look at it now, you kind of might be like, oh, I'm not a huge fan of that. But in hindsight, you may, at the end of this, you may say, oh, they did it the right way, right? So that's something we could go, or it could all burn down and be terrible in the end. But there's a lot of that MJF stuff right now is off the chain right now. MJF and everything that he's doing. I think AEW has dropped off just a tad bit, but we're going to touch on that. That's going to be our first topic, the state of AEW. New CM Punk rumors out there. We saw the Elite being dusted in that little promo that they had during Dynamite, or Rampage, I'm sorry. So we're going to get into that and much more. We also bring back the retro topic of the week. We've been a few weeks off of the retro topic of the week. We are bringing it back just because Steve is here. I'm bringing it back for this week. So let's get right into it with our first topic, and it's the state of AEW. Now, AEW has been the hottest promotion, at least in the States, for 3 going on 4 years now. But I feel like the last 6 months have been kind of lackluster, and it may have all began when Triple H took over in WWE and it kind of like new kid on the block feel that WWE has right now. But I feel like AEW has fallen off a bit. I don't know if it's because of the large roster, a lack of inventive creative at this point, or just nobody is really separating themselves. I think they just have too many guys out there. I'm not really sure where to pinpoint it, but we'll start off in a couple different spots. So, Steve, the state of AEW. Where do you see the state of AEW right now currently when it comes to creative?
Interesting. Creative. For me, it's a great point you start off because you mentioned where they started and how hot they were from the get-go, how arguably for the pandemic and also through 2021, they were even hotter. And I feel like it sounds a bit weird to say this, but it's like a musician. It's that difficult third album, isn't it? You know, you have that breakout album, you have that second album that comes out with that single that's even bigger than the first one. It's what you're known for after that. And then you get to that third album and go, what do I do here? Like, I've had these great storylines with Kenny and Hangman Adam Page, with the evolution of them. We've had those big pops of the returns and stuff with CM Punk coming back to wrestling. We've had Bryan Danielson coming from WWE, Adam Cole coming All Out as well. This point a year ago, AEW just felt like it was going to be a game changer. It was going to be the place where they had something always to keep us talking, keep us guessing. On a creative standpoint, they're still doing good stuff, because there is good things going throughout the shows each and every week. But the things, it's not as must see as it once was. I would agree with you. I would say that creatively, I think they are stifled because I think Tony Khan has too much on his plate. You mentioned the idea about 6 months or so, potentially Triple H. I think it's when Ring of Honor came in the conversation. That's when it turned for me. Now, don't get me wrong, I thought Revolution was a great show this year. I thought it was one of probably their best show of the year. But I felt like since there's been almost like a downside on each major pay-per-view they've done, whether they've had too many talents on their roster to work with. We've had like 14 matches each show. That's a lot of different creative storylines you've got to come with each and every show to keep you interested with a match. Otherwise, why is it there? You know, if you've just been thrown in like, I don't know, like randomly, I don't know, we're going to throw like Hookhausen being thrown into a match. Yeah, there was a storyline there for it, but obviously is there a need for a purpose to be that invested than it needs to be on a top show? Dynamite's still doing good stuff. I mentioned a minute ago the creativity with MJF, and I think that's definitely a topic that you could easily go more into. But at the same time, I would say that when you look elsewhere in the show, there's great wrestling, but I don't feel myself as hooked with things. We've had the JAS versus Blackpool Combat Club, for example, for months. It's been going on, I think, since before Double or Nothing. With, of course, we had the Blood and Guts match as well earlier this year. This stuff, when you look and say we're still talking about now at Full Gear, that's a full 6 months. And like you say, yeah, slow burning storylines can work, but they've had different variations of these matches so much that you feel like I've seen it. I'm ready for something fresh, ready for something new. And when it comes creatively, I mentioned with Ring of Honor championships. There is so many of them on television each and every week. How can we distinguish what is meant to be more important than the other? And when you have about 15, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago on Dynamite, there's 15 different championships on Dynamite. And you sit there and go, right, okay, what's important, what's not? And Orange Cassidy, that's the show he won the All-Atlantic Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it matter? Because it's the one championship that changed hands, yes, but when there's so many other championships on that show, we know that this isn't the top title. So you start thinking to yourself, what's in the important rail? And I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And that's what the problem is, creative AEW, is that I don't know what I'm supposed to care about most, what's meant to matter. MJF does, but everything else doesn't. And I think one of a small note, because if I'm talking a lot, I'm very sorry here today. But at the same time, when you're losing a lot of those top stars, creativity, you have an opportunity to build new stars. I don't think that some people filled those shoes, and I think a lot of people are missing the ones that are not there. CM Punk's not been around. We mentioned Kenny and the Bucks. Adam Cole's been out since Double or Nothing with that, Forbidden Door show with that concussion, which has been horrific as well. So there's many top stars that are missing from the company as well. And I think all of that in together, it really does hurt, especially from a creative standpoint.
I totally agree with you. That's a great point you made about everything kind of being in the same level of importance. Nothing feels more important than the other, but MJF being on the upper echelon of everything else. So it's MJF, and then everything else kind of falls underneath. And it's all just very everything feels very linear. And it's just a straight line. Nothing has any peaks and valleys to it, meaning the show is just a straight line of the same kind of importance and stuff. Everything feels kind of the same stakes wise, minus anything MJF does. And I think the issue with I have them creative, the ROH stuff did bring an issue into the fold, was that they already had a humongous roster to begin with, and since ROH doesn't have his physical own show or own events really, they are thrown in, especially on Rampage, stuff like that, and it feels lackluster as to why they made Chris Jericho the ROH champion, just because they needed somebody with a name to kind of hold that place right now for ROH, make it still seem like it's someone important until they figure out what they're going to do in terms of getting in a weekly television spot or online or whatever the case may be. Creatively, for me, it hasn't been as, like you said, must watch as it used to be. And I think it's just a ton of the roster. I think the fact that they have titles, not even from only AEW and ROH, but people from titles from other companies showing up there, I think isn't a good look either. Because you're just, if you don't know about them, then you're like, what the hell is that person wearing around their waist? What is that? Is that another AEW title? I think that hurts as well. But AEW has kind of fallen off a bit, and it could be because of the ROH stuff, because that brought in another enormous amount of titles and roster individuals along with it. and it's not like they don't stop bringing people in, because they just brought in Matt Taven, they brought in Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis on Dynamite. So I'm on Rampage. So we saw that. I don't know I don't know how to pinpoint it, but it could be, maybe it's all because of the Firm. I think the Firm is one of the worst factions we've seen in a long time. They're very unimportant. Morrissey doesn't even seem like he wants to be there. Now they're against MGF for some reason. It's very kind of up and down. But in terms of roster management, where do you think AW stands right now? Is it in a really bad shape of roster management, or do you think they've done the best with all the guys they have there?
I mean, roster management. I mean, we're talking in two different ways here. We're talking roster on screen. I mean, obviously, injuries and stuff are hard to go against, but obviously, I would argue at the moment, for example, we're talking about Dynamite. Let's talk about Rampage for a second. How unimportant has Rampage become? This time a year ago, we had Bryan Danielson against Minoru Suzuki on a show going head-to-head against SmackDown FS1. Okay, they won the demographic for the 18 to 30 for whatever is demographic, which for me is not that important as a wrestling fan watching a show. But still, now to this week, and we sit and go, Matt Taven against Wardlow in the main, and just on a nothing, it feels just unimportant all the time. No need to watch it. But with the roster management, I think when you look at Brawl Out, that for me is Tony Khan's done the best of what he can do in a situation. It got well out of hand to begin with. That's not been good roster management at the time because of what it led to backstage. The fact people not been on TV, the fact that the discussion of CM Punk potentially leaving the company as well, and people don't even want him back. Jericho apparently saying he's a cancer to that locker room as well. But obviously, it's brought out, shows the real role models of that locker room. The people like a Chris Jericho, a John Moxley, a Bryan Danielson. Jericho signed a new deal and he's now got more important roles. Shows that perhaps he's dealt with that right. So that roster side, the management probably is good because they've now perhaps tried to adjust things best they can backstage. On an on-screen perspective, I think they miss the bar too many times. We mentioned championships a minute ago. FTR, a prime example. You're holding the ROH Tag Team Championships, the IWGP Tag Team Championships, and the Triple R. I believe, not Triple A, Triple R.
Yes,
they're not batteries after all, are they? But at the same time, where is their opportunity to go for the AEW Tag Team Championships? They've been the number one ranked team for 6 months. I know they lost this past week on Dynamite, which rules them out for the time being. They can go with the Arse Boys for the time being. But at the same time, that was when they were that red hot at the start of the year, or certainly going into the summer. The fact that they just let it completely cool off, that for me is missed opportunities. The likes of Ricky Starks was getting over. Then they pair him off for going in a feud with the Factory. It's like, what are you doing? Like, put them in meaningful feuds and stuff like that. I think it just would have been a lot more important. And I suppose with roster management as well, again, I'm going to just give them one bit of benefit of the doubt. When you have situations like you do, we have injuries or I suppose bad backstage unrest where you have to have interim champions all the time. That has hurt that company a lot. And that is arguably a problem with the state of the company as well.
I think the tag interim is hurting them. Yeah, I think the tag that they've had to use it so many times. I know they first implemented it when injuries occurred, right? So they had interim, heavyweight champion. But with all the backstage drama, I think the interim tag has just been used so many times in a short span that it's really hurt them in terms of what's important, what isn't, and the state of storylines. I think it's been hurt because right now John Moxley feels like the guy. Whenever they have somebody who can't be champion, let's give it to John Moxley for now because he's gonna be our guy, right? That's what he feels like. And I think that hurts his character, hurts his importance, hurts his presentation on TV. MJF is by far the best thing going right now in AEW. It's not even close. In terms of roster management, I think one of the bigger issues they have too is the way, like you brought it up, 14 matches on a pay-per-view. It feels like they treat every single pay-per-view, even though it's not their most important, but they treat it as if in the terms of WWE treats a WrestleMania, where let's get everybody on the card so everybody's happy. We put everybody on there, and it feels like you're getting matches that mean absolutely nothing, are pointless in terms of creative and importance, and you're putting all that on a show, and the show ends up feeling like a 4-hour marathon because you have so many matches from top to bottom. I think that's a poor use of your roster just because you only have 4 or whatever it is. I think it's 4 or 5 pay-per-views a year. I think you don't have to put so many guys out there. Also, guys leaving for whiles and coming back. So you have Miro, who was there, who had a great run with the TNT title, disappeared, comes back. you would think he was going to be in something important, got that big triple threat at Forbidden Door for that All Atlantic title, which he didn't win. It was probably a good thing. It's one of the more useless titles we've seen, but now he's gone again, right? So
Yeah.
it's this back and forth of leaving, staying, being showcased, then disappearing. And I think that's because of their roster being so huge, and it's only gotten bigger. It seems like they have to cut the fat. They have to do what people hate Vince McMahon, Nick Khan for doing, is just cutting the fat off the roster and releasing guys that really either they don't feel like are going to be money makers for them, put butts in the seats or anything like that. I think they have to go that route, especially with ROH being there.
They certainly do. I mean, an idea they could do with ROH just in the meantime, if they could establish a roster for Ring of Honor, take over Dark Elevation. It's a YouTube show the relevance of what it could be. You can still have your top guys, like Jericho's the champion right now, and you probably think, well, why would you put Jericho on a YouTube show? Yeah, I understand that point of view. But if you're trying to get attraction to a brand, it's the perfect hand-in-hand thing to do right now. But if you want to make that brand mean something, I don't know anyone that watches Dark Elevation as it is right now. I don't know anyone who watches Dark as what it is right now. If you do, power to you. Fantastic. You enjoy pro wrestling and you got the time to do it. Enjoy it. But at the same time, I don't. But maybe if it was a Ring of Honor show, I maybe would say, I'm going to make an effort to go out on my way because I can see people like Lee Moriarty, those sort of technical in-ring style stars that I won't see every week on a Dynamite, because then I feel I've got a purpose. It's a roster. People that are lost like Private Party have used to be on a show. Now, I think that'll be quite good seeing it going forward. One other thing you mentioned about roster depth and people keep being signed and being brought in as well. Think about the pillars. What happened to Darby Allin? This time a year ago, he was like the guy chosen to take on CM Punk on his return. I mean, you could argue CM Punk's not really done anything for most of these people he's faced in feuds, because Hangman's fell off the radar since that feud as well. But I mean, at the same time, you look and say all these people that are supposed to be the next level that would have filled in those shoes haven't filled in the shoes because they're lost in the shuffle. And now we've got, like you said, the Kingdom in there. I think rumors I've seen this week as well, Bandito's meant to assign, Juice Robinson's all elite as well. So where does it end?
I don't see an end in sight, really. And I think WWE is kind of going down that same road because they've kind of done this to each other, where they had guys getting cut from WWE because of Vince McMahon and Khan, and then AEW swooping in and getting everybody. Now new regime is taking over WWE, and they're trying to make up for lost time and swoop up everybody they can before AEW gets them. And I think they may cancel each other out in that aspect. I think it's not a good look. Let's touch in the comments really quick before we wrap this state of AEW thing up. Eric, my cousin Eric, at work, will watch as long as he can. Always appreciate Eric always tuning in. Eric also says AEW feels like a video game creator come to life for dork Tony Khan. He's got a point there. I mean, there's so much smack talk about Tony Khan and just the way he is, and everybody believes that he is just too much of a fan to be running the product that he's running. And you know that could be true. Tino time, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining us, Tino. Always appreciate you joining us. Make sure you check out Tino's channel, because tomorrow he's going to go live and stream those NFL games, NFL Sunday. Make sure you tune in for that. Eric also says, like how in a video game you can create, just have random matches for fun. Does not always work in real life, since you need storylines and whatnot. My guy Ryan Awesome is in the chat. Haven't seen Ryan in a long time. What's up, guys? Has been a while, Ryan. Had Ryan a few times on the channel for reviews and stuff like that, predictions. Appreciate you joining us, Ryan. Tino goes on to say it's more like GM mode on 2K. It does have that feel, right, Steve? That, you know, he's like, I want to get all the toys in my toy chest, and I just want to play with them and do everything he wants with them. But one last thing, I think I've said this before. I said this, like a year ago. I think AW would benefit from maybe adding one or two more pay-per-views to their show, to their lineup, but also finally classifying one pay-per-view as their biggest, because it feels like, you know, when you get in WWE, even if WWE's bad, but you're always waiting for that crescendo of WrestleMania, right? That's the end game. That's where everything goes, and everything kind of resets after, even though there's no off season. But that feeling and that hope that you can finally get to WrestleMania, you're excited to see what happens at WrestleMania this year. You know, you're booking that year, you know, months before it happens, right? You're thinking about what's going to be the WrestleMania match this year, what's going to happen at WrestleMania. I think AEW needs to create that same kind of feel with a pay-per-view, picking one of the ones they have, either be All Out, Double or Nothing. Make that your number one. And I remember one time I was doing a prediction stream before with Max and Dan from DWE, and I brought up that maybe they should create, since the rankings feel very unimportant and pointless, like you said, FTR has been the number one contenders for those tag team titles for seemingly months now, and they haven't even gone up against the Acclaimed not once, or they didn't go up against Swerve in Our Glory. But I think if they do kind of like a mad scramble 2 months out rather than, how WWE has has Royal Rumble, right? Whoever wins that gets the main event. If you have a scramble in terms of the rankings, the rankings will lock 1 month prior to Double or Nothing or All Out, right? Whoever is the number one contender by that point is locked in the main event. The biggest pay-per-view of the year. If they can create something so that those weeks, those months leading up to that point where the rankings lock will be so much fun, because guys will be vying for that number one spot in the rankings, and it'll be their version of a Royal Rumble, but different, obviously, because they're going to be going. You could have a circuit of matches, and guys, you could have guys like Pac, Orange Cassidy, guys like Darby Allin going at it, week after week after week, trying to get to that top spot. So when that month out comes, boom, it's locked in. That guy's the number one contender. It could be a different twist on a Royal Rumble style of getting your main event set a month before your biggest show of the year. I just think they should do something like that. Obviously a little bit, better creative than the way I made it up, but just something to have a crescendo and have people waiting for that moment that, the biggest show of the year is coming. This is going to be the match that everybody wants to see. And it could be a way of getting to that point.
I think it's a very sensible idea, personally. I think, like you said, not only the fact of the building point to get to what would be the biggest show of the year, but also that feeling of knowing when there's going to be a reset button as well. At the moment, you feel there will be reset buttons after each of these big shows, but to know there's like the real reset button, like the night after WrestleMania, where it all begins again to start the journey to the next year. That feeling is missing in AEW, and I think that's a really sensible idea, what you said there, because also, like you said, there's all this what we're fighting for, and that feeling, that you've got that locked spot. I think it's a very clever move.
Yeah, and it's something different, like for them not to just create or do the Royal Rumble, I mean the Battle Royal for the casino thing, or the chip and the ladder match, stuff like that, where it feels like arbitrary in the end, because you never really see that person win anything. Obviously, MJF probably going to be the outlier in that. He's probably going to win the title using his chip, but I just think it'll make television way more fun. You could do it on Rampage. People tune into Rampage. You could really build around it. Guys vying for that number one ranking spot, and it'll make the rankings at least one point in the year feel reasonably logical, because right now they have no logic to them whatsoever, and individuals are having matches on YouTube, and that's counting towards their rankings. All of a sudden, they're number one contenders, and number one contender never really feels that important. It feels arbitrary. It feels like handpicked out of a hat or that. So I think maybe that may help in the end, hopefully. But that's the state of AEW currently right now. They're in a bit of a lull, and WWE continues to grow in their momentum. Hence the name of the stream today. WWE's momentum continues. So next topic. MJF, a tweener. So I felt like he was gonna go full-blown babyface, but he's keeping that heel part to him a little bit, where he'll say something nice to the crowd to get a nice babyface pop, but then kind of shit on them right immediately afterwards to kind of keep the heel factor. But he's helping out Jon Moxley, or not really helping him out, but kind of coming to his aid, because he wants to take on a Jon Moxley at full strength, which is a very babyface move. Now he's beefing with the Firm, even though he just hired them, but it's very convoluted, that storyline. But what do you think? Do you think this is the right move for MJF? Because I think he'd be not a good baby face. Now, Chris Jericho did say, I saw this in one of those press conferences, that he said that when MJF comes back, he told him he's going to be a baby face. And MJF said, no, I'm a heel. He said, you're not going to be able to fight it. It's just one of those things that you're so great as a heel, people love you, and that you've been gone and you come back, you're going to be automatically a guy that people cheer like crazy. So he's obviously leaning into that, but he's still keeping some of those heel tendencies that MJF is known for. What do you think about MJF's new direction in his character?
I'm personally loving it. There is a couple of arguments of depending where the story goes to how I will feel at the end of Full Gear, I think. But like you said, there is an argument that when you've been missing for a while, that when you come back, absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yes, it does.
And that's when you sort of go, we want to cheer this guy. And like you said, that's been teased around a lot, but MJF has tried to fight it. He's tried to, come back with that devil sort of worshiper thing that he did at the start. People are still cheering him on afterwards. So I feel like they've played into the storyline narrative of it. And at this point where we've got this past week on Dynamite, we know that what we've had with MJF and Moxley, the build of saying he can be really a nasty piece of work going into this. We've had the face-to-face confrontation with William Regal, which, let's be fair, it was beautiful. We're talking about the state of AEW and just something that was mind-blowingly great, one of the best things of the year. That was superb. superb. Yes, it was discussing about WWE, but still it was superb. And it led to another layer of the story of what could go next. Now we've got to this week where we've been seeing for a little while MJF doesn't want the firm involved. Now the firm has got involved, and to the point that MJF had to do the babyface thing because the Blackpool Combat Club were locked in there. And I thought it was a nice little touch of detail, by the way. Do I come and help? Do I not? Is where they go next with this. And for me, the reason why I think it works is because I think it's all a bluff. I don't think that it's going to work in the long term that MJF is the babyface. He's leading us down the garden path to think he is going to be the babyface. We're going to get now this where we'll go against the firm. It'll be a situation with him and John Moxley. Can they coexist? A former WWE storyline that didn't work so well. But still, nonetheless, I think it can work well here going into the show. And MJF says he's going to win this match clean. He's going to win the match clean. That's a small little detail. And I've got to give a shout out to Bama Chatter, Bama Dave on Twitter. He came out with a tweet as well, which I thought was very clever, was the idea of the devil sort of making people pretend he didn't exist, which is what he said when he came back. The second thing was to make people believe he was a good guy. So I think that's another narrative coming into the story. And I think when it comes to Full Gear, this is my prediction right now. I think MJF has paid off the firm. He paid them off before. If he wants to fool people, he can pay them off again. I know it seems silly in the story. You've paid someone to beat you up, but people have done that in wrestling before and then go, oh, we tricked you. Yeah, we did our bit to get where we need to go. I think when it gets to the show, MJF is going to win the match clean because he doesn't need to use the diamond ring. Regal's going to turn and use the brass knuckles on John Moxley. That's where it's going to go. And myself and Jones have been discussing that a little bit. So that's a bit of a collaborative to where we think the end of the story will go.
Yeah, I heard Jonesy told me the same thing, that he's in belief that William Regal's gonna turn, and you see the issues between the Blackpool Combat Club as it is with Danielson, Yuta. There's issues brewing there, and the group itself has pretty much fallen off a lot since its debut. I think it's been since they put Claudio in there, the group has been felt kind of odd in a sense, and it hasn't been at the same level it once was, because you had the two stars in Moxley and Danielson joining forces and then creating it and then bringing in a guy who needs a rub from these guys is Wheeler Yuta, but Claudio is the guy, the oddball. He didn't really fit in the group, and I think that's hurt the group in the end. That's a great shout by Bama Dave, that's saying that, with the religious undertones, because in religion, the devil is that he tricks you into believing he is the righteous one. He is on the right path. He's the good guy in it. And also it's the belief that he actually doesn't exist. It only makes him stronger. Right. So, that's great. Those religious undertones are tremendous when implemented correctly. And if they go down that route, and it could be because, they brought up the devil thing a lot, so it makes total sense as to why they would go down that route. But that those undertones, religious undertones, and that deceitful manner, I think, is great, and it's a great swerve. I mean, in the end, we love swerves in wrestling, right? Exactly. In storylines, it's those big swerves that throw us for a loop. We love it in TV shows, we love it in wrestling, we love it in movies. We love swerves. We love to see the unexpected, even if you expect it just a tad bit, but the fact that it actually happens is a big pop moment. But that's great. I do that would be awesome. Now, MJF, let me ask you a question. MJF is a full-blown babyface. Is he just another Ric Flair who just is lackluster in that role, or do you think he can pull it off?
He's that good on the mic. I think he can get people on side. You've seen what he's like in New Jersey. He's the hometown hero. And of course, the show's in New Jersey. He's going to get the big pop when he wins that championship. And I just think one of us will touch. William Regal can say, I knew he could do it. He didn't need me to do the brass knuckles. It's just done for the fun. But at the same time, I do think he can pull the role off. I just feel in the back of my mind that the idea of us being pulled along is a lot more fun, because then MJF can really be hated and we can get him into the storyline that he needs to do. It's always been about the bidding war of 2024. The idea of him taking that championship away from AEW, walking away from the company unless he can be given the biggest bucks possible. That story needs to be done. It's almost the CM Punk like of Money in the Bank 2011. If they don't do that, it's a missed opportunity, just like they've done with other missed opportunities this year. We mentioned about FTR versus the Bucks. All 4 belts on the line would have been the perfect thing to have done at All Out this year. They went a completely different way, and everyone went, okay. It was great with Acclaim versus Swerve and Glory in the end, but we all going into that show went, wasn't what I would have done. But there you are. But at the same time, I think that MJ can pull it off. He's that good on the mic. He's got people cheering for him already. He gets you emotionally invested. He's a generational talent because of the fact he can make you care. If he can make you care, he can do it one way or the other. I just hope he stays as, let's just say, on the devil's side.
Yes, I think so. So I think it could go 2 ways, right? So obviously the way you said with William Regal turning and the whole devil playing up that whole role, or he goes full blown babyface at the end, wins clean. He gets a handshake from William Regal, and then William Regal turns on, say, John Moxley and punches him with the brass knucks. I think either way, William Regal's going to bring out the brass knucks and turn and end the Blackpool Combat Club as we know it. I'm not so optimistic though as MJF as a full blown babyface. I just think it's not in his DNA. I will be at the event Full Gear because it's close to me, so I will be there. So I'll let we know a live reaction as to how the fans in the crowd actually are going to take this, whatever ending that we do end up getting. But all signs, I think it's a no brainer that MJF will become your new AEW World Heavyweight Champion at Full Gear. I don't think there's any doubts about it.
It's time. If you don't do it now and then you decide to pull the trigger a couple of months before he could leave the company, again, it's a massive missed opportunity. And we've already talked about the state of AEW in great depth already.
Yeah, and this is coming off the heels of them kind of, he drops the pipe bomb promo, and then he disappears, and they don't even reference him whatsoever. So they ran a tightrope there, with MJF. He's just so good that even with that kind of screw up on AEW's part by just kind of letting that drag out so long with never being brought up, him being so good, him coming back and everybody feeling like it just happened the day before. So I think that's a credit to MJF, not really to AEW, because I think we all felt that they dropped the ball in terms of keeping that storyline alive and in the back of people's minds without letting them forget about it. But that's the credit to MJF and a testament to him and how good he is, as to he could come back from that after that kind of lost opportunity by AEW and still capitalize and make it just as good as he's made it. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But enough on MJF as a tweener. Next topic of the show is the Elite and the CM Punk rumor. So we saw the Elite, that promo where they're kind of getting dusted Avenger style, and being taken away. First time they've really referenced the Elite or shown anything about them since the All Out Brawl. CM Punk rumors. Chris Jericho said he's a cancer backstage. A lot of people saying that he's a psycho backstage. The Larry the Dog story that he brought up at All Out, saying the dog got injured, supposedly is not even true. That's what I'm hearing online. So there's a lot of things coming out about this. He's obviously being bought out of his contract, so the guy's going to make millions of dollars without having to lift a finger. A Steel released. WWE has some interest supposedly in bringing CM Punk back in whatever role that could be. Let's start with the Elite, Steve. When do you see them coming back? And do you see them referencing any of that stuff when they do come back? The fact of the brawl and everything.
So this is the thing that I don't know about mentioning the brawl itself because of the ongoing investigation, legal, right? The legal side of it. They can't do it for that reason. But what I think, looking at what they did this way, you mentioned Avengers there, the Thanos way that they did it, I thought it was really clever, because we saw those different images there of when they started with AEW. I think it was the December 31st, 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Then obviously with I think it was the Bucks with the tag titles, Kenny Omega winning the title at Winter is Coming, with the trios titles as well. All key moments. And I remember as well with that first one, the E going out of the AEW first with the Thanos style way. And it's like the Elite is taken out of All Elite Wrestling. Is it just All Wrestling without them? AEW, I think, in their mind, is nothing without them. And I think that that's what they should play on. It's more of a heelish style way. But I think that one thing's for sure that's come out from this, we don't know what happened really backstage. No one of us were there. But what we can say is that there's a bit of politicking on both sides. I think that that's fair to speculate and suggest that that could be the case. And I think that if you were to do that and bring them in that form of storyline, I think it could be very interesting. I think it can be the closest thing, perhaps, of the taking the Elite out of All Elite Wrestling, making the Elite try to take over, and why it's the Elite of All Elite Wrestling could be the closest thing we could get to an NWO storyline in the modern day. And that's what I want to see come from it. Your question of when I think they will return, I think Full Gear could be the perfect place if they've started those now. Because if you want to do that, they can return then. They can try and hijack the show, whatever they want to do. I wouldn't have them to go for the trios titles until Revolution, but that's just me personally. I'd like the slow burn, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's their immediate destination they come back into to start off with. And I'd like then for the Bucks to try and win the tag titles, Kenny to go and win the world title. I'd like the idea of them actually trying to be the belt collectors of trying to get every AEW title, the titles that matter in this company, and get the rest of them out.
Now, what do you think about them returning at Winter's Coming? Because I remember you said that you think Winter's Coming, they treat it as a really big, like, Dynamite show, right? They treat it almost pay-per-view-esque. What do you think about them coming back there?
That would be a perfect place if they were to not, because they were taken off the poster for Full Gear, so that would suggest that it could be. They certainly can't be advertised for a match. That's where they could come back and make an impact on the show. But Winter is coming. It definitely would be a great destination as well. Like we said it on a previous stream, or myself in the comments, that this is a show that matters when it comes to AEW with their their side Dynamite shows. Certainly more important than Battle of the Belts anyway. I'd be fully invested with that because that's where Kenny won the world title. I want to see Don Callis come back as well because let's be fair, he is despisable and I love it.
No, he's a great heater. That's what he is. He's just the heater. He gets all the heat for everybody else like that. But you saw that they have the Eliminator tournament ending to see who at Full Gear to see who gets the title shot at Winter is Coming. Maybe that's the way Kenny gets brought in. If they all come out together, could be something like that. Eric says, word is they kicked the door in CM Punk's ugly dog Larry's face, and that's when all hell broke out. So that's the rumor saying that his dog got injured, and that's pretty much how the fight starts out. But now it's coming out. I'm hearing rumors is that was maybe a little bit of a lie, that the dog didn't get hurt. So West Coast Podcast, what's up, guys? Hey, yo, thank you for joining us as per usual, my guys from West Coast Podcast. Awesome channel. Make sure you check them out on YouTube. Everybody, let us know what you think. Let us know your CM Punk thoughts, because that's where I want to find out what the public feels about this man. So moving on from the Elite, CM Punk rumors. So obviously Chris Jericho said that the guy's a cancer in the backstage, right? People calling him a psycho backstage. The rumor of the dog being a lie. What are your honest thoughts, Steve, on CM Punk? Not the wrestler, but the person in terms of locker room, backstage, personality, politicking. Is he what they claim he is, a cancer to all wrestling locker rooms?
Feels like he's a cult to his own personality, doesn't it? I mean, sorry it was the easiest way to go into that, but at the same time, what I would say is that I would throw a question back at this, because there's a quick way to answer this question without going too in depth, because I could easily go on for hours. Should CM Punk have returned to pro wrestling? Because he left in WWE in this, man. He walked out the day after the Royal Rumble 2014, and everyone took CM Punk's side because WWE is the big bad animal, the big bad machine. Everyone anti-WWE, quick to go and say everything else is cool in WWE. He's now had the same situation happening with All Elite Wrestling. I'm not saying backstage fights, but this certain thing has happened. But the same politics, the same rumors, the same of CM Punk's meant to be difficult to work with. Like you said, all the toxicity that we've got with CM Punk now has happened here. And this time, there's a lot of people are saying, maybe we were wrong first time. And it makes you think that perhaps CM Punk, all those years that his name was being chanted in arenas, everyone stuck by him. Look, I'm a big, like you said, the in-ring performer, the guy on the mic. I will say I'm a fanboy of CM Punk. I've got a CM Punk t-shirt of him joining AEW. I'm a big fan of CM Punk. But backstage, it looks like this guy may have made a mistake coming back to pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's something you have to separate the two, right? The professional wrestler and the person CM Punk. And that's an amazing point. I was thinking the same thing. The fact that he does it in one place and you cheer him for it because you hate that place, but he goes to the place that everybody loves, and he does a similar thing and causes a big commotion and everything like that. You have to place blame eventually on him, because you can have all the talent in the world when it comes to pro wrestling, and if you never make it, the blame has to eventually go on you yourself. You have to look at yourself and say, you know what? It's something I did as well. I can't blame it on, WWE, they never gave me a shot. Sometimes it falls on you, right? Because you have to make them give you a shot in the end. And when it comes to this, he leaves WWE, for his reasons. He comes out with the podcast with Cole Cabana, buries WWE to no end, and gets a lawsuit with them, hates them. And obviously he's saying all that to people that also feel the same way about WWE. So he's cheered as their champion, right? The internet fans champion at that point, because he's trashing the evil corporation that is WWE. He goes to the internet wrestling fans' haven, which is AEW at this point. And he does the same thing, right? Not exactly the same, but he ends up doing the same thing. The man is who he is. It's just, there's no way around it. And he himself should have internally looked at himself and says, can I function in a locker room full of young, former, basically just coming off an independent run like that, those guys? Can I function with these individuals, these young guys? Because remember the thing he said at the Scrum, like he's tired of dealing with these young guys who think they know everything, right? That's one of the things he said. So don't you think to himself, retrospectively, he looks in his mind and thinks, I made the wrong choice. I should have known that I couldn't deal or handle these guys. I couldn't be in the same locker room as them. And it's just the guy, right? In the end, it's just him. That's just the way he is.
Ultimately, and the thing is, it's like, did he feel that everyone would worship the ground he walked on to the point he could just pick and choose what he wanted? You could argue, I mean, obviously the MJF feud was great, but MJF was kind of building his way to being a star anyway. But as I said earlier on, what happened to Darby afterwards when they fought? Darby's kind of gone into obscurity. Hangman Adam Page definitely had a 6-month title reign, and he just felt like nothing afterwards for quite a while. He was, stuck on Rampage with the Dark Order. I don't feel that CM Punk necessarily made new stars or put people over in the way that he should have done. And we talked about missed opportunities earlier. We're talking about the idea of backstage altercations with CM Punk and Kenny Omega. I know Kenny was injured for a majority of the time, but damn, we never got the match. We never got it. If he never comes back, the amount of missed matches we didn't get with CM Punk in AEW is criminal. It's almost like a Bret Hart in WCW. We never got Bret versus Hogan. And it feels like this is the same case now. We'll be talking about Punk in the same way. This is I mean, not in that sort of way, but it's almost like a dark side of the ring waiting to happen. The toxicity of CM Punk's return to wrestling in AEW.
And I think that may end up being his legacy, the dark side of the ring that comes out afterwards. I think that is what that may end up being his AEW legacy, not even what he did in the ring or anything like that. It's the controversy afterwards, and when we finally get to see it played out in a dark side of the ring documentary style. But I want to bring up one thing that you mentioned. What happened to Darby after he faced him? What happened to Hangman after he faced him? He didn't really catapult other guys to get on his stratosphere. It's very John Cena-esque in terms of criticism, right? He went in there, he got the wins. Nobody really came out at the same level as he did. It's kind of one of those things. You either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, right? Which is John Cena. He was the villain of professional wrestling at that point. He never puts nobody over. Why is he winning? Stuff like that. It kind of feels that same kind of way. And those are things that he was vocal about as well during that time period, and ended up kind of happening to him in a certain way. Ryan Austin says Punk was unprofessional at the media scrum and made everything about himself. That's where ego comes into play. A certain amount, I saw RVD say this, a certain amount of ego is what you need to be a top guy in a profession like professional wrestling, but it has to be controlled at some point. Eventually it has to come to a point where you control your ego to get it to a certain point that gets you to a place you want to be. But when you don't start believing your own hype and your own thing, your shit don't stink kind of mentality. I think that may be the point at where CM Punk is in his career, where he just thinks he's the top guy no matter what. In his mind, I know he honestly believes he's the best in the world, but I think that rubs everybody else the wrong way, because I think he takes that with him into the locker room.
I have to agree with a lot of what's been said there. Obviously, the RVD comments there that you said there, that certainly is definitely the way it should be. Well, I'm sure that there's a lot of egos. Like I said, I'm sure there is ego in and amongst the elite as well. Yep. Well, it's not just one-sided here. You have to be to get to the point that you're at in the professional business.
Well, so before we get to this comment, ego has to play. You have to have an ego, right? Because you're not going to make it to the top if you don't.
Exactly. I mean, you go back to all the top stars that we've seen throughout the years. I'm sure there's been politicking going throughout. Obviously, WCW was very famous for. That's what probably led to a lot of the breakdown with that company as well. But yeah.
Yeah, it's too many egos and stuff tends to go that way. West Coast Podcast says, why was Mox wrestling in an eliminator tournament match for his title last night on Thunder? And very nice Colt joke, Steve. That was served up on a silver platter for you, the Colt's personality one there.
Absolutely, indeed. Well, I believe Mox was filling in for Wheeler Yuta. I believe Wheeler Yuta was meant to take on Matt Menard, and he was double booked with New Japan. Again, casual New Japan follower, so I don't know what he was doing over there. So Mox filled in for that role instead. I believe that's why the switch was done. But yeah, it kind of, I mean, Rampage in general. And I feel sorry because West Coast Podcast, I know they do the watch along every week. So for that reasoning, it's worth watching. But Rampage has fallen massively downhill. So for me, I recommend just go and watch the West Coast Podcast stream instead.
Yeah, it's really the only reason you should watch Rampage live is just to follow along with them and not really pay attention so much to the show, but pay attention more to them as they stream it. Yeah,
that's totally if you need to know something.
Exactly. West Coast Podcast. Yes, thank you, Anthony. John Cena is the villain. Hashtag John Cena sucks. Now we know. Now he has been revealed as to who this person is behind this West Coast Podcast. Exactly. Comments in the comment section. It's obviously Zach. Zach, thank you for joining us, brother. We all know it's you. You've cat's out of the bag. It's him. Not the biggest John Cena fan. Let's wrap this up, Steve, on the Elite and CM Punk. Do you think CM Punk shows up anywhere else after this?
I mean, that's I'm going to try and keep it brief. There is an opportunity to make money. And
Yes.
that is what people need to remember. If this can all be sorted out, this investigation, regardless whether it's AEW, whether it's WWE, whether it's worth the risk or not, there is money to be made. And I can guarantee that if WWE bring him in again, it's not backstage this time. There is no backstage to begin with now. But I mean, obviously, it wouldn't be something like that. They would go and jump him in straight with Roman Reigns. They would make money out of the situation, put him on SmackDown, put him on Raw, whatever they need to do. But will he is a massive if at this point. I'm not convinced that CM Punk returns to a wrestling ring again, but stranger things have happened. I mean, Triple H and CM Punk not meant to be on the best terms, but Triple H will do the Vince McMahon moniker. What's best for business? I'm sure of that. And we've seen already that Triple H he's brought one or two people back in his time already. So one more, especially if it's got a name value of a CM Punk, there's a possibility it could happen.
Money talks in the end, right?
Yeah.
The end is the bottom line and how much money goes in your pocket and everybody else's pocket and what's profitable. That's all that matters. You have to you got to think about it in the sense of it's a business. That's what it is. It's a corporation. So their number one job as WWE is the job of making money. Secondary is wrestling. And I think that goes for every profession out there, any company out there. The number one reason you go into business and create a business on your own and have one and be running a business is to make a profit, make money. And the secondary is whatever that business is supposed to do. And that's what it is. I think it would not surprise me whatsoever for him to come back. It wouldn't surprise me if Fox pushes WWE to do so because they brought him in for backstage. And Jonesy's told me multiple times that, they were the ones that wanted to bring CM Punk in when he was saying he was going to come back, and WWE didn't want to. So there's some animosity there. But when they show the paycheck, I think, either the paycheck to CM Punk or the paycheck everybody gets from CM Punk being there and bringing the houses up. Like, I don't see any complaints other than him creating another backstage fiasco.
Absolutely, I have to agree with you. Just one thing, just before we switch it over. Imagine if Tony Khan had taken CM Punk's side and it was the Elite that could have been out the door of Hangman Adam Page. What a get that would have been for WWE. At this point, they then would have Cody, they'd have Kenny, they'd have the Bucks, they'd probably get Hangman. They don't need Tony Khan to have the full set.
That would have been the dream scenario. That's like best case scenario is that Tony Khan would have sided with Punk in there. That would have been best case scenario. That would have been like hitting the lotto because CM Punk is great and all, but he comes with a lot of baggage. If you were able to get four top guys like that and implement them into your roster, I mean, that's a gold mine right there. But
absolutely.
The Elite, CM Punk rumors, we love the drama. We say we don't, but we love it. We love when this stuff happens. We love the Sammy Guevara, Andrade stuff. We love Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa stuff. We love all this stuff, and hopefully we get more of it. But next topic, Money in the Bank and Hell in a Cell event changes. The rumor has it is that Triple H is looking to change Money in the Bank, and the rumor is it could be going back to a once-a-year WrestleMania match, one for the women on one night, one for the men on the other night. I think this is a dream come true. I think the saturation of the match itself by being placed in its own event has hurt it and lost its luster in terms of the cash-in, whoever holds that Money in the Bank. Hell in a Cell pay-per-view supposedly being completely scrapped and gotten rid of. So maybe that includes getting rid of the red cage. Hopefully, we're all hoping for that. But what do you think, Steve? Are you for Money in the Bank and Hell in a Cell events completely going away and just the match itself being a special occasion type of thing?
I'm on the idea of special occasions. I want to give a quick shout. I know that a lot of news outlets have reported this in the last day or two.
Yep.
He doesn't get enough credit, so I think he deserves some credit. He reported this on his stream. I think it was Monday or last Friday. Tom Colohue does his spoiler warning shows, and he reported this before I seen it everywhere else. It only came out in the last couple of days, this stuff. And he mentioned Money in the Bank specifically as being one of them as well that could go back. He didn't specify where, but WrestleMania looks like it'd be the most likely. I mean, for Hell in a Cell, I mean, for me, get rid of the red cage, but it should be kept for when it matters in a feud, not just, we hit June. We need someone in the cell. What are we going to do? Well, okay, it worked beautiful this year with Cody and Seth, but it's not going to work like that every year. Some years we got CM Punk versus Ryback. I've mentioned Punk again, but you know what I'm coming from here. But Money in the Bank, yeah. I mean, Money in the Bank is It suffered. It signed its own fate this year. They tried to make it the one of the big five of the year, and arguably tried to take it above one of to get it into the big four, and it failed miserably. They wanted to make a stadium show in Las Vegas, had to move it to an arena show. Like you said, they've had many years where Money in the Bank has almost failed as a concept because they don't know what to do with the winner. A lot of the time, they are into making moments rather than having, the journey of the superstar make the moment. I think the Bloodline is a perfect situation, especially from SmackDown this week, of that's a moment which has been gathered from a story and everything that gets you gripped on what's happening next. Money in the Bank is all Liv Morgan wins it, big moment. She cashes in, big moment. What next?
Yes.
Oh, she's got to face Ronda again. Okay, we're in trouble. Austin Theory, bring him in, big shock, fantastic. And I thought it was great when he won it, but now what to do with it? Vince apparently, rumor had it, wanted him to cash it in the SummerSlam and fail, and just that's it, dealt with. Another Baron Corbin, another Braun Strowman. It's so much that Money in the Bank has become irrelevant. And I've seen a lot of people were comparing earlier this year what was a big four show, Survivor Series or Money in the Bank. There is no comparison whatsoever. Money in the Bank, but it belongs on WrestleMania because that's where it mattered. It's not done the same since leaving. Seth Rollins is probably one of the ones that matters. Dolph Ziggler probably another one. 2011 just as the show itself. Other than that, I would say that all Money in the Bank's WrestleMania is the only place it's mattered. If you compare it with a Survivor Series, for example, yes, I know recent ones have not been to everybody's taste. I've always been a big fan of them, but you go back to the history of what that show was represented, there is no comparison whatsoever. Money in the Bank, unfortunately, it's taken a hit this year. They took a gamble, it didn't work, and that's why they're going to make the move, I believe. But Extreme Rules, other shows of that nature probably go away as well. Keep the Rumble, keep the Chamber, scrap the rest. Just use them when it matters.
I totally agree, and it's a great point that we were just talking about how money talks. And when they decided to make that Allegiant Stadium show for Money in the Bank, and that was a complete failure, they weren't able to fill it up, so they switched venues. That I think is the kind of the straw that broke the camel's back at that point. That being like, oh, we were gonna do a big stadium show. We think we're gonna get it's a good thing. It's gonna revitalize Money in the Bank because it's gonna feel like one of those major pay-per-views. Imagine. You just brought up Survivor Series, Money in the Bank. Imagine this year's Survivor Series with the War Games. Money in the Bank would have never even come close to having that kind of buzz around that the War Games finally in WWE main roster we're gonna get at Survivor Series. But Hell in a Cell, yes, it has to be a feud ender, and the feud has to warrant it, just like a feud has to warrant a steel cage. A feud has to warrant a strap match. A feud has to warrant a I Quit, a First Blood. Those upper level gimmick matches need to be earned in a storyline rather than just it be, okay, it's coming up. It's that time of year again. Let's just put this together and have somebody out there. Now, Money in the Bank at WrestleMania, it's obviously where it started. It's where it's always should have been. Do you think they should just do one Money in the Bank, not have a men and a women's, like one night, but whoever either in the women's division or the men's division is on that trajectory that it will help them if they win it, that gender gets the Money in the Bank that year?
It should do. I mean, that's the beauty of it. I mean, obviously, WrestleMania is we mentioned this earlier, it's the place where it's the reset button. You win Money in the Bank, you go into a fresh year, fresh start. This is going to be your year to build yourself up to be the next big star in the company. We'll cash you in when the time is right. If it's not working out, you'll cash in and you'll fail. That should be how the moniker should be with Money in the Bank going forward. What it would do with Austin Theory's cash in this year, I'm not so sure. But the one other big difference will be is that with WrestleMania is always when WrestleMania will be, end of March, start of April. Money in the Bank has been flitted between May, June, and July for in the last 3 years. So you get to a point of thinking, right, okay, well, when is the 12 months up to cash that in? We don't know when it's going to be. And that could create a bit of a problem for Theory this year because does he only have till WrestleMania to cash it in? I think the best thing for Theory to do is to continue failing his attempts to cash it in like he had with Tyson Fury. Get to that point where it's the last few weeks. Instead of being the one that's the advantage of not knowing when you'll cash in, he'll be the one that's at the disadvantage because the champion knows you've got only about 4 weeks to cash in on me.
Yes.
So I can wait for you anytime. And then Theory either succeeds or fails at that last moment because of the fact that he's actually now at the disadvantage because every time he went, maybe he could do a Titus on the way, but going into one of these shows and fall over or something and hurt himself. Just something stupid because I know it's comedy, but for me at the same time, I think it works to keep that Money in the Bank relevant, that it's there in the background and he keeps trying to cash it in, but he keeps failing because as long as Roman's champion, he's not getting it.
And I think that's why it could work if he cashes in on Braun Breaker and wins the NXT title. He may try to take the lesser of two evils and say this is the easier way out, right? In terms of a character, this is the easier way out. He's a heel. He's a a coward type heel. So he knows that he cannot beat Roman Reigns. So he just eventually says his logic is I'm going to cash in on the guy in NXT. I'll become NXT champ because it'll be easier for me to get to that point. And I think, it's obviously logical and makes sense. It's true. And I think it's a way to kind of not have him cash in and lose and look like a goof and then you murder his character at that point. I think if you actually have him win the NXT title, he can be a guy in NXT, hold title for a while. That allows Braun Breaker to move up to the main roster, as I'm assuming they're going to do pretty soon. So I think maybe that probably is best. It's probably the best way out for Austin Theory to keep some credibility and actually have that briefcase mean at least something as it seems seemingly on its way out in the current form it's in, because we saw guys like Otis win, Baron Corbin win. Those guys didn't do anything with those things. Otis was probably the biggest kind of like disaster flop with it. You saw Asuka won it and she was just gifted the title because of the pregnancy for Becky Lynch. There's those things, and I think maybe if internally WWE creative has to think, look, this person, either if it's a woman or a man in whatever division is in, this person seems like they can really capitalize on this opportunity. So this year's WrestleMania is going to be a woman's Money in the Bank, and then next year we think this guy right here, he's gonna really capitalize on it. So it'll cause WWE to look internally more and really project things from a year out standpoint, seeing like this guy right here, I think this guy is gonna be a big star. If we can push him in a year, he wins Money in the Bank. Let's do Money in the Bank men's. Same thing for the women. I think just having a one man and one women's one night every year, I think is just, I kind of think you run into that same kind of trope of Money in the Bank that it is now. It's oversaturation.
There is that point, and there is that argument. I think that you make a really good point with that, because like you say, you're pinpointing that one person. Like let's take Theory, for example, is because he's the guy currently holding it. You see that's your future. At the point you just made there a minute ago, I thought was fantastic with Braun Breaker. The only thing that spoilt that was the Halloween Havoc Go Home show. He held it up. It was like, if it just come in on Halloween Havoc and cashed it in, then everyone would be talking about it's top 5 cash in of all time, because no one saw it coming and it would have been big headwaves and never been done before. I think the place to do it then, if we're doing a fantasy booking scenario, would be if you have an NXT show the night before WrestleMania, for example, and then cash in there, because then that way he's got in before and we not have to worry about WrestleMania itself, and it's still got the WrestleMania weekend feel. It's something different. But to go on to your point, I think that it's good, because like you say, you're pinpointing one superstar, because if you're trying to push two people at the same time, sometimes it doesn't work. It certainly didn't under Vince's era anyway. Triple H's era now, it's the moment it seems to be throwing a lot at the wall, seeing what sticks. And I kind of like that's what he's doing with a lot of his talent at the moment, because for me, that gives me a buzz and a feeling to get behind a different number of superstars. But like you said, when it's the same gimmick going at the same time, it always promotes one to cash in early and one to cash in late.
Yes.
And the thing is, at the moment, the women have always suffered with that, because they're the ones that, apart from Carmella, have always cashed in either on the night or the next night. And I think that it would be nice, certainly from a refreshing standpoint, to see a female win that Money in the Bank and her to have a journey with that briefcase to cash in at a later point. So maybe, like you said, 1 year, maybe it's good to not have the men involved just to do that. It certainly would be something different. And you've opened my eyes a little bit to it just with your arguments, let's say.
It's a breath of fresh air for me, because I feel like, if you just use the same formula but just change it and put it on the big event, I don't know if it really changes it that much. It changes it in the aspect that it's on the biggest event of the year. Yeah, great. But like you said, one of them has to cash it in quick. One of them has to slow burn it. You can't have for some reason they just won't have both do the same. And I think the fact that you have two at the same time, they cancel each other out.
Yeah. I think there's an argument with that to be made for sure.
Yeah, it could be, but there's an interesting question Eric brings up. I want to get your thoughts on this. What's the chance War Games becomes a Survivor Series tradition? Like, instead of the traditional Survivor Series match, was it 4-on-4, 8-man tags or 10-man tags, elimination style? Could Survivor Series have a new tradition of it being just the War Games pay-per-view?
If it's a success this year, absolutely. There'll be no question it'll be back next year, perhaps even the year after that, and they'll see where it goes. And again, you could make the argument, it's that same thing again. But what's to say next year isn't Raw versus SmackDown? They can do different things with it. They can make it work with the stories, or they can make it vice versa. Would say with NXT, they always had the Undisputed Era a lot of the time, so that made it work. They had naturally had a faction to work with other guys, so that made it work. So I hope that they can make this work in the Survivor Series format. Certainly, if you look at things right now, the women's is really starting to take shape. You can sort of see where that's going with Damage Control. It feels like it can be the bloodline for the men. That would make the most sense in my opinion, although we are still got this Judgment Day OC feud going on right now, so you can always build on that as well. So there are lots of factions building and stuff, so it's making a lot of excitement. I hope that it's not just the full function of the show. I still would like to see a traditional Survivor Series match, but certainly I think that this is certainly could become the new tradition going forward. Yes,
and it's interesting how the rest of the card is fleshed out. Right?
Yeah.
Is the rest of the card Raw versus SmackDown, or is it just whatever feud is going on in their respective shows or respective titles? That's what we get now. But this is the same thing as Money in the Bank, right? Do they have to do a men's and a women's every year? Because then you have to kind of forcefully build into that, right? It doesn't happen organically. It doesn't really happen in the kind. So when it doesn't happen organically, it feels more of like you're forcing it to happen, right? Because it doesn't happen organically, so it doesn't come off as well. Could that be the same thing, or should they do what I suggest for Money in the Bank? It doesn't matter which, if it's men or women, but whoever has the hottest feud when in terms of factions going on, they the ones that deserve to get the match.
Potentially, I mean that could be the case. It's the same argument we make there, and I think it's a fantastic argument. When you've had any of these gimmick match shows, when you have, for example, 3 Hell in a Cell matches on the same night, it comes to the point of like, okay, well, I saw this earlier. It's nice. It's nice to have 3 over the course of a year rather than having 3 in one night. So I definitely would agree with that argument to a point. The only thing I would say is that currently War Games has been an NXT event. I think to this point it has been a success, although more times than not. Because of the fact that it's just me personally watching it, like I said, with the saturation of seeing it already in the night, the women's usually is the one that opens the show, the men's is usually the one that closes the show, and more times than not, I found myself enjoying the women's match more, mainly because, maybe the match has been better structured, who knows, but at the same time, I would turn around and say it's because of the fact it's the match that I haven't seen War Games for over a year, I've seen it, and then I get it 2 hours later, and I've not really recovered from the last one I've watched. So I kind of go, yeah, it's good. But didn't you see EO with that trash can jumping off the top? Do you know what I mean? So it kind of has that vibe as well.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect point. It's perfect because, it's that feeling. I just saw it. What I got to see it again, right? Like, why am I getting the same match again? The only difference is men and women's. So, I mean, that's a great point because that's the feeling you get. It's like you start off the show hot with that match, and then you're going through the rest of the show, and then you got to try to get up again for that match, that same match that you just saw, right? It's exactly the same. Nothing changes really in it. So I think that's a bit of an issue there. So I think they just probably just do one, and whoever has the best feud warrants it in the end, right? It's just whoever's the best gets it.
Easy. Just do Bloodline versus Damage Control. Sorted.
Exactly. There you go.
Tick all the boxes.
Yeah, that's it. Right. So I mean, the thing is that also with a match like War Games, right? Different from Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank is made to elevate somebody to that spot where they could become a champion.
Yes.
Hell in the Cell. I mean, I'm sorry. War Games. We've seen it where the Undisputed Era was in like every single one, so you can repeat the same teams over and over again in terms of, we saw how many times have the Horsemen been in it, right? How many times has Sting been in it? Same guys, because it's not that style of match that's supposed to elevate you to a world championship. It's a team effort, so you can have the Bloodline be in the next 4 War Games matches, and nobody would bat an eye at it because of the concept of the match and the way the match is structured and what it's supposed to be about.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a totally different concept, like you say, of what these gimmick matches represent. And I think that with this, obviously, it's that team element, like you said. You do the Bloodline 4 years in a row. You do Raw versus SmackDown next year. The winner, like the 5 of them, then can go off in the Fatal 5-Way, get a title shot at the Rumble. There's so many different elements of what you can do to make this match work. Currently, this year, it feels like they're going with storylines, and that's why I think the Bloodline matters. Because if you look at Sami Zayn or Jey Uso, I would have said, up until this week, Sami Zayn's the one that lets the Bloodline down, and that's where the cracks begin, and you can start getting that Sami Zayn face turn. But after this week, maybe it should be Jey Uso. I don't know. It would be beautiful if that storyline went complete full circle from where it began. But we might be talking about the Bloodline later on. But for me, there's so much you can do with War Games that can make fun element with this show that definitely I can see it becoming a tradition for sure.
Yeah, and it's a more flexible. There's more kind of utility with it. You can go different ways with it. And I think this is probably their best bet as to have a consistent traditional every pay-per-view that year has this match because there's so many possibilities.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the next topic, and it was a return that happened. Emma, she returned. We hadn't
Yes.
seen her to Neil Dasher. We haven't seen her in a long time. Now, it's not so much her returning, it's what this kind of creates because they continuously are bringing back individuals that have been released or prior, either recently or before a while back. So Emma being one of those people that have been released years ago and she's coming back.
Mm.
Are they going to run into this issue in the women's division where they bring back all these women and have kind of a saturation that AEW has? Do you guys see that happening? And let's focus mainly on the women's division, but them bringing back, so they bring back Emma. Who knows who else they're going to bring back and who they're going to bring up from NXT? Will they have an oversaturation because the women don't have as much TV time as everybody else, right? They have 2 to 3 matches a night, for the most part. It's better than AEW, but it's still, to have a roster that large. Do you think there's going to be saturation and kind of everybody cancels each other out?
There certainly is that argument. The thing that can go on the opposite side of this, and this really should be made for AEW as a point, really, in one way, is that if you look at the old NXT where Triple H's baby was born, it was a 1-hour show. We had it on the network. They did the tapings or whatever, but not every wrestler was on every week. That way they don't get overexposed. You have the point where, say, Emma's on this week's SmackDown, she's not on next week. She gets a bit of a week off, then she comes back the week after, and they can continue that storyline. It's also, it works perfectly for an AEW side when they have 4 shows a year because that's how you can really build a rivalry over time nicely. So in that argument, you can make that. But yes, at the same time, with the women's division, there are a lot of women that aren't getting TV time right now as it is. So with more coming in, there is a potential that some could just be lost in the shuffle permanently. I've been told WWE's catering is very good. So that's always something, at least as a bonus. But at the same time, that's not where you want to be spending your time if you're under contract in WWE. My main thing with Emma returning, I thought that she's a great in-ring talent. I think that she adds something to SmackDown, certainly, that is missing a bit with that roster, because I think a number of the talent that is in the women's division of SmackDown, harsh comment could be coming here, could get a bit of feedback from this one, but I think some of them are a bit green. I think Emma adds that stability. You know what you're getting. She's like an Natalia. You know you're getting a solid effort every time Emma will come through that curtain. What you will say, though, is she came back and she lost to Ronda Rousey on night 1.
Yes.
Where are we going next? Because now she's got only one place to go, and that's down. And that's a sad thing. I'd like to have seen dare I say an evolution, I was going to say that, but an evolution of the character almost. We definitely don't want Emelina back, although I wouldn't mind her Impact character. But I'd like to see her have a story where it would be better for her this time around, because she's been 5 years out of WWE. For her to come back, I don't think she won a world title anywhere else. Impact, she didn't. She was a tag champion. She, I think it was Sumi Sakai, won the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship when she was in that tournament. So I don't think she's been a Women's World Champion somewhere else. This could have been a real story to go with. But on night when she comes in, loses, maybe they can still build a redemption story for that. But here, that's for me is where I see the flaw.
Yeah, I agree with you. So my problem is that she comes out an open challenge, right? From Ronda Rousey. I think when you have the champion, especially a champion who's very hard to beat in a Ronda Rousey, for somebody to come back and answer open challenge, I think it has to be a bigger name than Emma to make it more, if she, so that the person that when debuts loses doesn't lose as much. Emma comes back, a lot of people don't remember who she is. So a lot of people haven't seen her Impact stuff and the stuff she's done outside WWE. Exactly. Her reaction wasn't the greatest reaction that she got when she came out because her name value isn't at that level. Now, when you have somebody so solid coming back and knows going to be an integral part of your kind of mid-level, mid-card women's division, I think she should have been brought back in a faction in terms of a group, so that it's not, the focus is not completely on her and she doesn't come out and lose immediately. Because in the singles, she has to come out and either win immediately, but you put her up against an unbeatable champion. I think it's just a lapse in judgment there when it comes to WWE and bringing somebody back with Emma. Unless they're just going to treat Emma as just a mid-carder, as somebody who just goes in like a Natalia. Is dependable, reliable, has a solid match, can help somebody, and that's it. If that's the choice, then it does. In the end, it doesn't really matter. But I think they should have brought her back in kind of like a group to kind of take the spotlight off of her as much, because she doesn't have that same name value as somebody else. Like I can say if a Charlotte would have answered the open challenge.
You make a great point there. I mean, can you imagine Emma with Damage Control just for a second? Because they're going to need at least one more member. Definitely, I think they're going to need. I think that'll be a 5-on-5, because you look at the women's side on the other side, Bianca, Asuka, Alexa Bliss, Candice LeRae. They picked on someone else this past week as well. Where I'm sitting there, was escaping my mind, but they could bring in Indy Hartwell. There's other people that could fill the spot. Raquel Rodriguez, Shotzi. There are people that could fill that spot. So they could easily do 5-on-5. Emma would have been great as part of this group here because I think Damage Control is missing an ingredient, and certainly like an enforcer role from her would have been quite good because she's got such experience as well. But like you said, she's got great experience like a Natalia, and maybe that's what her role will be, is to help the greener talents in the locker room, get them more polished, get them more so that they can get to the next level, become an Emma and beyond. We'll have to wait and see. Time will tell on this return what it will lead to. One thing's for sure, though, she's a great in-ring talent, and I hope that she does get a better crack of the whip this time around.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be. She could just be brought in that, and it may not even be a full-time position. It could be sporadic. She shows up just to have matches with a few individuals and kind of help people and have them have solid matches. Interesting. You brought up Damage Control because Lumiko's in the chat. Numiko, what is up? He says, let me guess, Emma and Damage Control. You read your mind.
There we go. Literally.
Yeah, literally did. I mean, it's a solid ploy for her to be in there because you do have War Games coming up. And if you're going to go that route, that's a solid person to have in that match because she will perform at a level that you will be satisfied with at the end of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% agree.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with the women's division and further returns. If we have more to come or if it's going to kind of go in a little bit of a lull, which I think it probably should, and not bring back so many individuals just yet, but we'll see. It could be watered down. We'll see if they run into the same issue because again, you have AEW doing that. And maybe WWE with a new regime is trying to do the same and trying to pick up as many people as they can so they don't go to AEW type of thing. But it could be it could backfire on them in the end, to be honest. Numiko, about Asuka. Remember when Asuka was written off of TV? Looks like she got a legit injury, so that's another 9 months out of action. Wow.
All right, that's definitely one out of War Games.
Yeah, it definitely is. We could see NXT people come up. Maybe Cora Jade comes up because I think she's been tremendous in NXT as a heel. I think she's really coming to her own there. Maybe she gets brought up. We've seen people come down already, back down to NXT and then come right back up, back to the main roster. Shinsuke did it. Raquel Gonzalez did it. So there's a lot of people that went down, come right back. So we could see that happen for War Games. But the next topic, Uncle Howdy. The rumored identity of Uncle Howdy. I read up that a lot of individuals believe it is Bo Dallas.
Yes.
Now I'm kind of confused because they revealed a face, but it's still a mask. Right? It's still a mask because you can see his lips underneath the lips of the mask. So he's still wearing a mask. It's just a different look. It sounded similar to the cadence of Bray Wyatt. So could it be just Bray Wyatt playing this Uncle Howdy character, or do you think his brother Bo is in the fold? Because they said he's been signed.
Yeah, they reckon he's been signed. The way it would make sense for it to be Bo as well, like we said, I just did the ear thing there because it was meant to be the earring that was meant to be the same. That's what a lot of people have made the connection there with that. I think it was Sean Rossap that said that actually that the Howdy looks a bit like a Barry. Was it Barry Windham from the Blackjack? So I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and double check it. But one thing's for sure with the Howdy, it certainly could be Bo Dallas. For me, I like the idea of this Howdy character. Pulling Bray Wyatt back in. I like that, like we said, it's been a slow burn, this storyline. Clearly, Bray feels he's managed to escape himself from his demons. Yes, he's done some horrible things, will do horrible things, but he feels like he's trying to get out of where he was before, and this Howdy is going to pull him back in. Is that his conscience? Is it his mind? Or is it someone within his family? Because, of course, Bo Dallas is blood, so it would make a lot of sense for it to be Bo.
I think it is Barry Windham you're talking about. Yeah, I think it is Barry Windham. That's supposed to be kind of what it looks like. Obviously, Wyndham, part of the family, all that. So it makes total sense. Now, who else do you think it could be? If you had a guess, like if it's not Bo Dallas, it's not Bray Wyatt, who would you choose?
I mean, the thing is, there's the Uncle Howdy. It wasn't meant to be Uncle Harper that was trademarked as well at the same time. Now, I initially spoke about an idea on one of my live streams of Vincent being there, and I said it will never happen. We're never going to get Vincent in there. I think it'd be great for the role. And then he was backstage at Raw with Dutch, 2/3 of the former ROH 6-man tag team champions of the Righteous. They would be quite fun in the role, just purely because of the fact that Vincent is, and this is meant with the kindest respect, by the way, he's a weird dude. He's someone, when you hear him talk, he would be perfect for a White Six. You dig what I'm saying, man? And all the stuff that he comes out with, he would just fit that White character. The look that's with him as well, I think would be just a natural fit. I'd love to see that part of that. Some of the people that I speculated at the start that I think would be a good fit for this group, no longer do I believe in. I mean, for example, Nikki Cross's return, so I don't see that being her. Dijakovic looks like he's going back to NXT, so I don't think it's going to be him. I thought he was growing that beard for a reason, clearly not. But at the same time, the other one would be Joe Gacy, that I think could be a good fit, just purely because of the fact that, again, he can ramble in these weird ways that can get you thinking, get you talking. But sometimes blood is thicker than water. Well, it's always thicker than water, let's be fair. But in this circumstance, I think it makes more sense narratively to have Uncle Howdy as someone's actually family rather than someone that would be, I suppose, a friend that calls themselves family.
Now, that'd be interesting to bring in somebody like Vincent, somebody that doesn't have that mainstream notoriety, right? That you would bring in a spot like that. It could hurt. It could be beneficial. It's kind of like that thing where the higher power was supposedly supposed to be Christopher Daniels, but nobody really knew who he was. So a reveal like that may have not gotten a great reaction, but they picked Vince instead. So could they go that route with a somewhat unknown mainstream wise? I think it'd benefit because it immediately gives somebody new something to do. It's something important because it's a top storyline. So it does help. But I think Bo Dallas has got to be that guy because everybody's been hankering for Bo Dallas to be affiliated with, him in the end with his brother on TV. So I think we're finally, hopefully, going to get it. Tino's time. Guys, look what I just posted on Instagram. I think it's Bo. They have the same earring on. You brought the earring thing. There you go.
Yeah, everything there. The only one I could say that could be quite fun just because he was part of the Wyatt family before would be Eric Redbeard. But I just feel that I think they're bringing back in a different capacity to Uncle Howdy.
Yes, I think so too. Yeah. Eric says, who the hell is Uncle Howdy? Bo Dallas, man. It's got to be. It's got to be Bo Dallas. Yeah, you saw him on Friday Night SmackDown. He interrupted the promo of Bray Wyatt. You saw it. Whatever mask he was wearing, it kind of sounded like Bray, but it could be his brother because it's his brother. They sound alike, so that could definitely happen. Bo seems like a guy who's very well versed in imitating others, and building a character. So he could be just trying to sound a little bit like his brother and throw people off the scent. But Tino said, just like you said, the earring. I mean, these little things, they count,
So I believe.
Yeah, there you go. Well, West Coast Podcast says the Bray Moss symbol was stickered in the background in another Live segment last night. So could we get in the Live part of the Wyatt group?
It certainly it would fit her character right now. If it's not going to be Nikki, Liv is the next best one. And I've seen rumors about that Bo Dallas and Liv Morgan are meant to be an item. Case, it does truly make that Wyatt family-esque if Liv Morgan was to be brought into the fold with this, because she's clearly lost her mind already.
Yeah, she clearly has, and her being on Chucky could be another reason why she may join that group as well. She's very into that kind of stuff, so it would make sense. And if they are an item, it totally makes sense as well. I mean, I can see all possibilities right now because it is a slow burn, and we're gonna be speculating on this for a while until we get reveals, down the road. And the white mask from Raw last month was in the Uncle Howdy video last night.
It was.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I hope it's Bo Dallas, though. To be honest with you, I hope it is.
Yeah, I would like Bo.
Definitely. The next topic is my favorite segment. It's the retro topic of the week, and it's because I'm a big fan of this era. Where does the WWF New Generation era rank against the rest? So if you're not familiar with the New Generation era, it's the post-steroid era of WWF, that 93, just about to 97 before the Attitude Era began. It's when you had stars like, Diesel, when you had Razor Ramon, when you had Shawn Michaels, when you had Bret Hart, when you had the 1-2-3 Kid. These guys were what the company was being built around because they wanted to get away from that steroid look and that massive hulking figure that was Hulk Hogan, that was Ultimate Warrior, guys like that, because of the steroid scandal and the risk of him being indicted on steroid charges, Vince McMahon. So I'm a fan of this era. It's super campy, super corny, super colorful, but I don't know why it's near and dear to my heart when I watch those old pay-per-views, when I see Brett versus Mabel, stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like those kind of matches, Doink, all that stuff, Crush, the colorful Crush, all that. I enjoy it. Now, where do you think this era ranks against the other eras in WWE?
I like that. I like that this is the question. It's a lot of fun here. The one thing I will say, though, you made some fantastic points and you spoke about the pros. On the other side of it, all the professions. We had the Goon, the hockey player, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Eli and Jacob Blue. We had Mantar, for goodness sakes. But what was it? Bastion Booger. Some
Yeah.
of the most horrific wrestling I've ever seen in my life. And like you said, when you look at some of the highlights of it, there were certainly some spectacles. You know, Brett versus Razor or Shawn Michaels in some of those matches. The Iron Man match from WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, and the ladder match at WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam 95. Where does it rank? Oh, well, let's be honest here. It's definitely in amongst the eras around it. It politely is the worst, but I have the same nostalgia as you because of the fact that I grew up in that era. I came at the back end of what was the old guard, the Hulk Hogan era that started everything, the golden era, if you will. I came in at this point where Bret Hart came in and won the title from Ric Flair and had SummerSlam 92. So it is near and dear to my heart, but if I'm being honest with myself, it's not on par with before. It's nowhere near the Attitude Era. It's nowhere near Ruthless Aggression. I would say that it's definitely, I'd say it's probably better than some of the era that we've had in recent years. I'd say there was an awkward period in 2018, the latter half of it to 2021 or whatever, like where I think a lot of fans got annoyed with stuff going on.
Yep.
I would say it would probably rank in amongst there, perhaps slightly better. I would argue as well, and I had this as a question the other day with Bama Dave when he was on my channel, what was worse, 1995 or WCW 2000? Because even though WCW 2000 is awful, with a lot of its stuff that it's got going on, at least it kind of has that realism kind of feel of the shoot element stuff going on. So it's a very hard question where to rank it. I'm going to say it's not quite at the bottom, but I don't think it's not far from it. But that doesn't mean that I don't feel so nostalgic about it.
No, I totally agree with you. If you were to rank it against everything else like we are, I think it's better than that kind of reality era because I see the two. I see one more fondly than the other, but it could have been the age as to where you seen it first, right? So you're a little bit more cynical when you get older, so you kind of see things a little bit different. But it was just it's campy, it's corny. 95 is probably one of the worst years in WWF history. If you just go back and watch that 95 Royal Rumble, it is the individuals in that ring are not the wrestling, acumen of these guys, but the characters that they've been given and the gimmicks that they were given. Sparkplug, Bob Holly, terrible character. My cousin Eric's favorite wrestler of all time, Tatanka.
I love Tatanka.
Yes, huge. He was undefeated. Then he loses. And they shave the red part out of his hair. I mean, I look back on it really, really fondly. I really do. I mean, you have characters like obviously Razor is one of the most iconic characters in wrestling history. The vignettes that you got to see for Razor Ramon. He's him, Brett, Diesel, Shawn. Those are really the guys that really stand out from everybody else because they weren't latched with heavy occupational gimmicks as a lot of guys were. I remember Ludwig Borga was supposed to be they wanted him to be a massive star, but that went nowhere. It's an interesting era, man. If you ever have a chance and you've never seen any of this stuff, go back and just watch some of it. I mean, this era we got Goldust, prime Goldust. We got him in this era, prime Goldust, who had so much heat, such a controversial character. Some to the point where they were forced to kind of change the way he was presented on TV because of the backlash that they got. It was a different time, but if you go, this is, I mean, great stuff. Undertaker with the purple gloves, Undertaker with the gray gloves, Undertaker versus Undertaker, which is horribly good. It's so bad that it's good. When they had the guy from Naked Gun, I always forget his name. He was there. They were trying to figure out who was people were seeing the Undertaker after you got thrown in the casket at the Royal Rumble in '93. One of the funniest things, he gets the casket match between him and Yokozuna at Royal Rumble 93. All the heels come out and beat the living hell out of the Undertaker, and no baby faces come out to help Undertaker whatsoever. And then he gets thrown in the casket. He ascends, even though this was be kind of a demonic figure, but he ascends seemingly to heaven, disappears. And then there's the rumors that they've seen him out in the street. They've seen him in a playground. They've seen him at the local butcher shop. And then it's the fake Undertaker. I mean, this kind of stuff is so campy, but I go into like long form and responses about this era because I look up back on it so fondly.
Absolutely. And one more I just have to quick shout out to as well, the Lex Express back in '93.
Yes.
The fact he was going in that, the new Hulk Hogan, and then July the 4th body slamming Yokozuna. No one could do it. Everyone trying to do it, and he's going and done it. And then obviously they built to SummerSlam 1993. The new style going to be built. Lex Luger wins the match. by count out. And he
Yes.
celebrates like it's the biggest thing ever, and the big red, white, and blue. And it just was like, what are you doing? Like for me, SummerSlam '93 is one of the worst shows ever
Yes.
that I sat through. I was sitting there, oh my God, this is painful. And of course, when you're a kid and that's all you have to watch, we didn't have the network back then. I watched it quite a few times. But yeah, I would agree with you. There were some painful moments, but stuff as well. Brett versus Owen, that feud, that one of the great feuds at the time.
So good.
A special shout as well to Nonstop Wrestling Chat. I know he's taking a goodbye for the time being, but hopefully he'll be back on our channels and on our YouTube station very soon. But with the blue steel cage, Bret Hart versus Owen Hart, I know it's his favorite match of all time. So special shout out to Barry. Hope he'll be back at some point in the near future. But yeah, it's there were some really good stuff as well in that era.
Yeah, big shout out to Barry. Such a good dude, man. He really is. But yeah, that blue cage. I mean, that SummerSlam match, that cage match between Brett and that's such a good match. And people love to talk about the WrestleMania 10 match because they opened the show with it. And then at the end, where he wins the title, Brett, and then you see Owen as the baby faces are carrying Brett in the ring. Owen comes out from the entryway and just gives him a look and walks away. It's such good storytelling. I mean, the era is bad, but it's good. It's campy, but it's fun, and it's those little things that you got there that were so good. West Coast Podcast says, this is the era that lost me for a couple years. Steve nailed it. The stupid professions, too much trash filler between matches from guys like HBK and Hart. That is so true, but I still like it. I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. It could be just like being as a kid during that time and seeing it, the colorfulness of everybody, all the colorful costumes there. It's just, I don't know. I honestly don't. It just feels like you're watching like Saved by the Bell, but wrestling. You know what I mean? Like that, all that colorfulness of Saved by the Bell and shows like that during that time period, you see it in wrestling. It's just great stuff.
It's amazing stuff indeed. And Triple H is bringing so much back at the moment, superstars and everything. And we seem to get in War Games now coming Survivor Series. If you can bring one thing back more, Triple H, bring back the hog pen match, please. Henry Godwin, we need it one more time. Triple H knows he's been in there.
Yeah, he's been in there before. He knows what the hog pen match is all about. I mean, that'd be a lot of fun. Eric is a fun. I mean, yeah, Eric's my cousin. He's older than me, but loves that era as well. Tonka is like his favorite. But it's so much fun. Go back and watch it. It's campy, it's corny, but you gotta love it. Next topic, it's our final topic. We're gonna end on this, and it's Crown Jewel predictions because next Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, is Crown Jewel, and it happens like super early in the morning, right? So we might as well go through our predictions right now about what's gonna happen at Crown Jewel. Are you excited for this event at all?
I mean, excited isn't the right word. I'm never really excited for these shows, but I think that if we're going to look at it subjectively, and I choose to look at it from a wrestling perspective only, and looking to what they're trying to work with this audience, I think it's a clever card of what they've done.
Yes, it's a controversial event, always is, because of whatever stuff that goes on over there. So it's controversial at the least, but it's an event that they make a ton of money off, so we know why they do it. It's obviously is what it is. But yeah, it could surprise us, but let's go over the matches, right? So we'll start off with the Usos versus the Brawling Brutes, Ridge Holland and Butch, even though he looks just like Pete Dunne. For the tag team titles, undisputed. Who do you got, Steve?
Usos going to retain. It's far too soon for them to drop the titles at this point, where I think Roman holds the gold for a lot longer. The bloodline remains strong.
I agree with you, and it's one of the tropes with these kind of pay-per-views is that they don't really feel like much is going to change coming out of them, right? It just feels kind of like it's just an event, and we're going to come out of it the same as the way we went in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel that certainly with this one as well, it could actually elevate further to War Games. I'm starting to feel that if they don't do the White Six at this point, which they probably shouldn't, we could be looking at the New Day and the Brawling Brutes that could be a potential opposition against the Bloodline.
Definitely. This isn't the spot to do anything with the White Six either, right? Because it's over there in Saudi Arabia. It's an international show. It just doesn't feel like it's the right spot to get a really good reaction to do more with the White Six and all that stuff.
Certainly when they've done it at the pace they've done it, if they had done to a point where Bray is like, I've got my target, I know I'm going to go for, then he confronted the person at the towards the end of the show or who it's going to be, that would be a different case scenario. But at the moment, it feels like Bray is more fighting and wrestling with himself than other people at this moment.
Yes, the internal struggle of Bray Wyatt is live for us to watch. We'll see where that goes. Bianca Belair versus Bayley, last woman standing match for that Raw Women's Championship. It's obviously a great achievement and a great stepping, progress that we see when the women have matches in Saudi Arabia. Obviously they have to be a little bit more covered up because of the rules out there, but you get to see the Raw Women's title being defended in a stipulation match, last woman standing. I think this is the time Bayley has to win this title. I think she should have won it their last match, the last pay-per-view, but I think Bayley needs to come out on top here.
Absolutely. The stipulation threw me because I was so convinced that Bailey would win this time round. When they threw the stipulation, I was like, people are comparing Bianca recently to John Cena. It's happening a lot. And it kind of feels like that's a match Cena would never lose. But at the same time, I'm going to say that I think we're going to get a bit of a wonky finish on this match. There is a potential we could get a draw, but I'm going to say that Bailey will win because I think that Bianca won't be able to stand up at the count of 10 because her hair's going to be tied up somewhere.
That's actually probably the most creative way you could probably go about it with this, because you remember the pay-per-view match they had, the ladder match, where she takes out all of damage control by herself, very John Cena-esque, right? So I get the similarities and the comparisons there. So I think this is the time to kind of avoid that by swapping the titles here, having them win. And yeah, it makes most sense because if it's gonna be interesting to see if she puts something on top of her hair where she's not able to get out of it, and that's why she's not able to get up. That could be a really fun way to end the match.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next match, Braun Strowman versus Omos, which is a match everybody's dreading, but it makes total sense as to why we're getting it. These men are massive. These men are huge. Strowman has to win this match, even though Strowman seems to be kind of aimless in his direction right now as to where he's going with his return to WWE. But this is a match we're getting. I don't think anybody's going to enjoy it. It's probably going to be a really short one, too.
Yeah, I think you're on the money of everything. It's the attraction match for the audience that's there. This wouldn't work in any other place, but it works here. Braun's winning in quick fashion, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to move on quickly from it, and almost probably enjoy some catering after this.
Probably, yeah. I mean, the catering's probably bomb over there. We'll see. I mean, yeah, the crowd over there isn't gonna shit on it like the way a crowd over here or in the UK would. So that's why they chose to do it here. It's very calculated and a very smart decision on their part. Next match, Drew McIntyre versus Karrion Kross in a steel cage. This is interesting because they had a strap match as like their first official match, Extreme Rules, and now we're getting a steel cage. Kind of upping the ante here, but none of it really feels warranted.
Yeah, this feud has gone a bit for me. I'm not as into it as what I was earlier on. I feel that fans are not connecting with Karrion Kross the way that I think that we would have liked to have seen it. I think that Karrion's actually suffered from being one of the first names that came back to the point that I think that his relevance has kind of gone down the pecking order, especially as he's now not the White Rabbit that was speculated as well. I think people kind of soured on what we're seeing here. The idea of the cage, obviously, is to keep Scarlett out because Scarlett can't interfere. It's a cage match. We know she can interfere. Karrion should win this, in my opinion, but I have a feeling that Drew is going to win this one.
That's why I think he should have won the strap match. And then this is where McIntyre gets his kind of, because why does he, he won the strap match, right?
Yeah.
McIntyre.
Karrion Kross won the strap match. Yeah.
It was Kross that won it.
Yeah. Kross won the strap match.
Okay. So he won the strap match. So it makes sense as to where you're going, but the stipulations just don't feel warranted, right? Like it doesn't feel like the feud should be at this level that it needs to go from a strap match to a cage match.
Yeah, for me, it's just, I mean, all right, they did the car accident thing the other week, which I thought, okay, fair enough. But I don't know. For me, this feud's not working, and I just feel that the crowd is not connecting to Karrion Kross. They need to do something to really get people invested. And unfortunately, this isn't the show that's going to do it either.
Yeah, definitely not. Next match, Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley. And what we assume is going to be a short match, but very hard hitting and a feud that we always love to see. We've seen it a little bit before, and we're going to get it here. I hope it continues after this, but I don't think it will. I do think Lashley should be the one to get the win here.
It's going to be interesting because I feel that this could be one and done. They could redo this at WrestleMania as well for the rubber match. They did it in the Royal Rumble earlier this year, which is where Lashley won. I think that this time around, Lesnar will pick up the victory, and then we'll see if they get a proper match further down the line. But obviously the Rumble had lots of interference. I think even Roman got involved at the time. So kind of was a bit not what we got. This is the dream match this time round. I will be honest, I'm really looking forward to watching this match. I think the build to this has been spectacular.
I think it's going to be a nice, fun, hard-hitting match, similar to when we saw Goldberg versus Lesnar, which was surprisingly better than we thought it was going to be because of the way it was booked and put together. It was short, hard-hitting, right to the point. Now, if they are going to continue this, then yes, you want to do 1-1 to split and have the rubber match at WrestleMania. That would make total sense. But I just don't see it continuing on. It may die, and then maybe post-Rumble, he comes back to kind of get his, revenge or something like that. Or
that could make sense.
Yeah, that's really the only way I can see it going from now to WrestleMania. Next match, 6-man tag, the OC versus the Judgment Day. The Judgment Day has been good. I mean, post what they did to Edge, they've been really good. And with Dominic and everything like that, him comparing himself, saying he's better than pretty much than Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero was the Dominic Mysterio of his generation. It's a hilarious statement to make. And Rhea's been great. Now, they're looking for help to to take on Rhea. So could we be getting somebody showing up here to help the OC with Rhea Ripley on the outside?
I think that would make a lot of sense here because that's the only way I can see the OC picking up the victory. It makes more sense here for Judgment Day to win because they have the extra number and the advantage. If they want to build it up and have someone come in to even up the numbers, that would make perfect sense then for the OC to win, especially with the fact if you're going to go for this kabuckle with Cole Anderson actually being on this show and not on New Japan show, the double booking that was done there. But no, for the moment, I'm going to stick with Judgment Day, but we'll see after Raw if that changes.
Now, the thing is, I feel like, both teams are in a spot where they kind of need the win because the OC coming off of the previous iteration of the OC, it's kind of a joke, really didn't come off that well, wasn't really well booked. Now they're back in WWE with AJ Styles. It's kind of one of those things, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Judgment Day's hot, they're doing good. The OC needs wins. They need to be presented as a legitimate group. It's a tough call. I figure the OC should win this match, but it has to be because somebody is going to help them with Rhea.
Yeah, that's going to be the situation. I think Beth Phoenix is probably the most likely.
Most likely, yeah. Not the most surprising, but the most likely. I hope they go with more of a surprise, but who really is there for them to surprise you with? There's not much. Next match, the main event. Roman Reigns, Logan Paul for that undisputed Universal Championship. We obviously know Logan Paul is not going to win the title here. It's obvious. It's written on the wall. Look at the show it's taking place on. Also, it's only his third ever wrestling match, but I think this is one is going to surprise a lot of people. I think Logan Paul is taking this very seriously. Wrestling itself, his training, all that. He's been training with Shawn Michaels down there in NXT. He's going to shock the world here, but not by winning, just by the performance he puts together. But you also run that risk of having him look too legitimate against Roman Reigns in a match. Does that sour Reigns a little bit? Because he's got a guy, he's been dominant for 2+ years as champion. You got a guy who's only in his third match, really putting up a major fight. I think they have to book it similar to how they've booked Brock Lesnar versus AJ, Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Bryan, Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor. Dominates the match. Some lucky spots give Logan Paul a bit of offense, but in the end, he just loses.
I 100% agree with you. That's how they should book it. They should have the moment where Logan hits that lucky punch, gets the 1, the 2, and everyone goes, is it? And then, no, Roman comes through, spear, 1, 2, 3. That's definitely the way to do it. Again, I don't think it'll be the longest match in the world. I don't think it's going to be the longest show in the world, this one, but certainly think that Roman retains here. It makes sense. This is all PR, isn't it?
Yes. It definitely is. I mean, it's all for the press conferences. It's all for the publicity outside of your wrestling publications. It's all for ESPN. It's all for all those major multimedia companies to be covering. This is what we're getting. It's just one of those things. This could be an event that's seemingly shorter than an average Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, imagine. I think so. Yeah, 3 hours tops this show. Doesn't go over that.
Doesn't go over that. But that is the Rasslin Report for this week. I appreciate Steve for joining me, helping me out here, and joining me for the Rasslin Report. A tremendous episode of the Rasslin Report. Appreciate everybody for joining us and wonderful comments and questions in the chat. Steve, any last words?
Just thank you for having me. It's been great to collab with you again, and hopefully it won't be as long to the next time. And thanks to everyone that's been watching. If you've enjoyed the video, then please subscribe to Rated R because he's fantastic with all the videos he does. Obviously with Jonesy with most weeks on this. And of course, if you enjoy from my side, then check over SCW The Wrestling Channel. Give me a subscribe and check out some videos over there.
Yeah, check out Steve's channel. It's a great channel. Like I said, he's one of the most consistent wrestling YouTubers I've ever seen. The amount of content this guy's pushing out there, especially long-form content is great. Has a ton of guests on his shows, a ton of other great wrestling YouTubers out there. Make sure you check out Steve. He's been on my channel so many times. I've been on his channel for a lot of times as well. We've been in this 2 years now, going back and forth between each other's channels. We got to collab another time again, hopefully sometime soon in the near future. And appreciate you again, Steve, for joining us. And with that, we're out, guys.